What a fantastic day it is to have all of you here. My name is Rich Baird, and I serve as a member of Governor Snyder's executive team. And I'd like to welcome you and thank you for being in my native city, where I was born and raised here in Flint, for our Water Infrastructure Conference, a national conversation in Flint. I'd also like to take this opportunity. An event like this does not happen without a great deal of planning and effort. And there's a couple of people I'd like to shout out directly, Bryce Feitner and George Christian from Department of Environmental Quality, and also the DEQ training and outreach team. You've seen those folks, they're at registration, they're all over, and frankly, an event of this nature can only happen when you have committed people to tend to all these details. And they've done a fabulous job, and I'd just like to give them a round of applause. This is actually an international conversation because we have participants here from other countries as well as from outside of our state. So on behalf of the state of Michigan, I'd like to welcome all of our out-of-state folks to the great state of Michigan. So thank you for being here. And as the moderator for today, I'd like to just share a little bit about myself. I mentioned already that I was born and raised in Flint. I consider myself a Flintstone, and I'm very proud of that fact. Flint has been a community that has faced its share of struggles economically, but I was one of the beneficiaries of Flint. My mother and I both benefited from Flint in many, many ways, not the least of which the automotive industry provided her as a high school dropout with a wonderful opportunity, and she saved her money. It allowed me to go to college, and it allowed her to retire in Florida, where she's happily living today. Those same opportunities have not been the same for a number of years, but we have the chance to bring Flint back. And although we've been through a crisis, as the Chinese say, the symbol for crisis and opportunity in the Chinese language in Mandarin is the same symbol. And that's where we stand in Flint today. And it's a great privilege to have the governor and the mayor of the city of Flint here today to kick off this conference. My role for the past year at the governor's request has been to return to my native city and to lead what is called Mission Flint, which is the state's coordination of resources and support and partnering with the mayor and her team and the community to not only address the water issues here, but also to address the quality of life issues. And it's been a great privilege to bring together education and different resources, safety resources, and look at jobs and opportunities for Flint residents in a way that actually addresses quality of life issues, not just getting the water back to where it needs to be. But as it relates to the water, you can imagine hundreds of people at all levels of government, as well as researchers and scientists from universities and non-government agencies, have worked together over the past several months, the past year plus, to monitor and restore Flint's water quality. And no community should ever go through what Flint has endured. But as I said, with crisis comes opportunity. And the most monitored system, water system anywhere in the world right now is right here in Flint, Michigan. And the most recent data from that monitoring announced just yesterday shows that the city of Flint's water system is again testing below action levels of the federal lead and copper rule, with 95.8% of the Tier 1 samples at or better than 15 parts per billion, and 90%, actually more than 90% slightly, at or below 8 parts per billion. And as the water system continues to improve, the state remains committed to working with Mayor Weaver and her team on all of the issues and on the importance of reinvesting in the infrastructure here in Flint, Michigan. But we're gathered today to discuss a national issue. This is not just a Flint issue. And what's happened here in Flint is really part of a larger conversation and larger concerns across the country that has prompted local and state and federal conversations about the urgent need for reinvestment in critical water infrastructure. And we all know that that infrastructure contributes to healthier communities and better paying jobs and a stronger foundation for families that are simply seeking the quality of life that I mentioned earlier that my mother and I have been happy to enjoy. The goal of this conference is to highlight water infrastructure issues, share lessons learned from the city of Flint and other cities around the country, and present new technologies and innovations to those involved in the operation, maintenance, design, management, and administration of aging waterworks infrastructures. This conference will help identify infrastructure solutions that may be applied to address even broader initiatives of the Governor's 21st Century Infrastructure Commission, as well as the national infrastructure conversation. We wish to use this conference to identify sustainable and strategic and affordable approaches and have conference attendees here actually influence statewide infrastructure needs and priorities. And it will come as no surprise to any of you that our governor, who is a call to action kind of individual, will expect that what comes out of this conference will be measurable, tangible action items and outcomes that will benefit the objectives that all of us have. So over the next 3 days, we have a great lineup of speakers and breakout sessions and exhibitors for you. And our speakers for today include Keith Cray, the Director of Michigan Department of Natural Resources, Bob Kaplan, the Acting Regional Administrator for US EPA Region 5, Gary Brown, the Director for Detroit Water and Sewage Department, General Mike McDaniel, the Director of Mayor Weaver's Fast Start program in the city of Flint, and David LaFrance, the CEO for American Waterworks Association. All of their bios are in your program, and I would encourage you to take a look because the bona fides and credentials of these individuals are truly exceptional, and it's great to have all of you here. Before I welcome our first speaker to the podium, I'd like to just take a moment to recognize all of our sponsors. A very, very big thank you to our Tier 1 sponsors, the Charles Stewart Mott Foundation and NSF International, as well as the many sponsors and conference friends identified in the first pages of the event program today. The contributions of all of these sponsors help make this conference possible, and their generous support allowed us to significantly reduce the registration fee for a truly exceptional 3-day event that would ordinarily cost much more to attend. And I just want to also thank, on behalf of the conference organizers, the exhibitors that are attending and are located behind us in the exhibit hall. A listing of all the exhibitors can be found in your event program as well. And if you haven't had the opportunity to visit with the exhibitors, I'd strongly encourage you to do so because there is plenty of evidence of cutting-edge technology and approaches to resolving some of the very incredible problems that we face. Without further ado, I'd like to get the conference started with our first speaker for the day. And as I mentioned, the bios are there, but I want to just say a couple things about Mayor Karen Weaver. Like the man that I work for, she was not a political operative in coming into her current position. She was an individual who felt that the city was going through a situation that required leadership, and she stepped up as a non-political person to run for mayor, and she won. And I have gotten to know her very well. I respect and admire her as a person, and her passion relative to representing the people of this great city is very, very evident. We have our rocky roads from time to time, but as she is fond of saying, we have generally learned how to dance. And it's been a very tough, but the enjoyable part of the journey, Mayor Weaver, has been to get to know you better as a person and as an elected official. So with that, let me ask Mayor Weaver to come up and be our first speaker, welcoming all of you to the city.
Thank you, Rich. I keep telling him Rocky Road is an ice cream. To the governor, to all of the elected officials that are here, to the dignitaries, to our sponsors, especially our Tier 1 sponsors, we appreciate the support that we've gotten from you. To the exhibitors, and to all of you that have come today, good afternoon. I am so honored, and I don't know if I'm more honored or excited to welcome so many of you here today to talk about such an important topic, our nation's troubled water infrastructure systems and what we need to do to fix them. During my State of the City address last year, I called for convening a convention such as this in light of the disaster that occurred in 2014 when our drinking water was switched to the Flint River without the corrosion control chemicals being put in place. So now we all know that the corrosive water removed a protective coating on the inside of the pipes, and it caused lead to leach into the waters that was flowing into homes and businesses in the city of Flint. And we had a significant number of children ending up with higher blood lead levels. And water tests revealed at that time some homes had levels that equated to toxic waste. But Rich just told you today, and I'm proud to say, that our people in Flint have been working on this water. We have all come together. We have had the right minds at the table, and Flint's water supply has significantly, the lead in it has significantly been reduced since the city switched back in October of 2015. We are still being urged to use bottled and filtered water while we go through this process, and the situation is likely to take probably the next 3 years until we're able to replace the estimated 20,000 lead and galvanized service lines that are leading to residents' homes through the Fast Start initiative. But I do take heart when I consider that with the proper will and financing, Flint can end up with the state-of-the-art. It can and it will. Let me say that. It will end up with a state-of-the-art drinking water system that once again will earn the residents' trust. I'm hoping today that the smartest infrastructure thinkers in America and across the world, from government, the private sector, and academia, are here at this conference, helping us figure out how to design, finance, and rebuild the Flint water system into a model not only for the state, but for the nation. Now, we know Flint residents and businesses have already paid a huge price for the man-made water disaster, but fixing our water system is the most important step we need to take in helping Flint recover. It's the most important step, and that means replacing all of the lead-tainted service lines, updating our water treatment plant to modern standards, and rebuilding. We're going to rebuild our deteriorating water distribution system. Governor, I just want to let you know that I was so pleased when you talked during your State of the State address that you intend to continue to help Flint recover from this water crisis. I was really happy, and thank you for that. We're grateful for the ways that the state has stepped up in the past year to help Flint and its residents, but we know more remains to be done. One thing, we need some more money. And with the help of state and federal funds, we're going to continue replacing the lead service lines from the water main to water meters within residents' homes. We also have some funding to replace the lead pipes and fixtures in 4,000 homes, but not enough to do all of the homes at this point. We also have to upgrade the water treatment plant, and we'll need financial help for that as well. And after a significant amount of research, where's my coordinator? General McDaniel of the Fast Start coordinator has determined that we're going to be using copper piping as the best material for us to replace those lead service lines because they're long-lasting, impermeable, and contaminants won't get into the drinking water system. But I do need to take this opportunity to thank, where's the Copper Development Association? I know they're not, there you are. I need to take this opportunity to thank them because they've helped the city of Flint acquire nearly 200,000 feet of copper piping for the 2017 phase of the Fast Start program, saving the city and the state approximately $1 million. And that's a big help toward helping us replace the lead-tainted service line. So thank you to the CDA. Thank you very much. And while I know you're here to talk about the policies and practices that will lead to better water systems around the country, I sure hope you have a chance to enjoy some of Flint. We've got so many educational and cultural and historic attractions. We've got great restaurants, and it's an opportunity to learn more about us. The people that call themselves Flintstones. We call ourselves Flint Strong. Sometimes we call Flint Bedrock. But one thing is for sure, that the people in Flint are not giving up on our city. We know that if we get the resources to fix and rebuild Flint, if we restore social justice and economic equity, Flint can help launch a lead-free America and a renaissance of our aging water infrastructure nationwide. And I know that many of you will be part of that. And I'm excited. I'm excited to hear what you're going to say over the next 3 days. So I want to thank you for being here and say welcome, welcome, welcome to Flint. Thank you.
And I do want to recognize a wonderful partner that we got to know each other through adversity, and it was a challenge. Mayor Weaver came into a situation that many people would actually want to go the other direction from, but she wanted to take on this issue in terms of making a city she loves a better place, and to walk into the midst of a crisis, and to take leadership during a crisis phase to make things better. That takes true commitment. And I really appreciate her dedication to do this. And at points we've had some interesting challenges in our relationship, but that's to be expected. During times of crisis, life is not a straight line, and not everything is easy. The real question is how do people look beyond that to say we have a common goal? We want to see this be a stronger, better city. And to say, how can I be a supportive partner to do that? Because Mayor, this is your city. And how do we create that environment for success? So I've really appreciated the opportunity to work through issues and to solve problems, as Rich said, with relentless positive action. And I look forward to continuing that because our work is not done by any means. We have to address that in terms of we had short-term issues with the crisis itself. There are intermediate-term issues that we're working through today. And we're looking on how to make Flint a better place for the next 30 and 50 years. We've had great dialogues on that topic. And we're going to keep that up because the people of Flint deserve it. The crisis that happened here shouldn't have happened. It wasn't right. It is something that needed to be addressed. Mistakes were made. It's a case of changing a water source and having aging infrastructure and some bad decisions. But what you do is you say, how do we learn from that? How do we move forward? And how do we make Flint a better, stronger place? So as we've gone through the issues of dealing with the water crisis, Flint had a number of other challenges. And I think it's been an important opportunity to say, how do we reach forward and solve many of those issues? How do we look at those kind of topics? And I'm not going to continue to elaborate on what the mayor said. I couldn't improve on it in terms of talking about the water situation itself. But I thought I'd have a few comments with respect to more the broader environmental situation. So as we've looked at water supply issues, water infrastructure issues, we've also looked at important issues such as health, because people were adversely affected in terms of their health. So we've done things like add school nurses to the situation. We've improved health care coverage for people. We've really looked at opportunities to get better health care throughout the entire environment, how to do mental health counseling in terms of other issues. Again, this is beyond just a water crisis, but how do we make this a stronger, better community? And we've had good partners in doing that. So I want to thank the philanthropic community. It's great to have the Mott Foundation here, but many others, many volunteers, the Red Cross, everyone came to the table to help That's when you learn about the strength of a community. So healthcare has been a key issue. Nutrition is another one. In some ways, Flint has been a food desert too much. And so we've had the opportunity to reach out to say, how do we get more access to healthy foods and vegetables? And we've seen huge improvements in terms of mobile food pantries, double up food bucks. It's great. We've got a great food market here in terms of downtown, but there's more opportunities through the neighborhoods. And that's one of the longer term things we can continue to work on. How do we continue to bring new options, opportunities within the city limits and the surrounding areas to make things better? And then ultimately, a lot of it comes down to, do you have a job or not? Do you have a way to support your family? Do you have an opportunity to have a standard of living where you can say, you can stay here, you can watch your kids grow up here, they can have a brighter future? And we're seeing success in jobs now. We've added over 800 new jobs in the Flint community over the last year or so. That's a good start. We can do better. And as we have an opportunity to talk about success in Flint, that breeds success. So hopefully there's an opportunity to see a continuing economic expansion, economic opportunity in Flint, to see the community grow. If you think about the wonderful education institutions we have between the community college and the university, it's wonderful to see. So let's look at ways to accelerate the economic comeback of Flint. And that's one of the reasons I'm excited to have this conference here. Because this is a conference to talk about learnings from Flint, opportunities to make Flint better, but it is a national conference. And I appreciate the participation of people coming from all around the world to be here. And I would echo the mayor's comment is, while you're here, enjoy Flint. Get out and try that restaurant. Walk around. And if you're wondering about what opportunities are there, we can explain there are a lot of plans on the drawing board or in process to make further improvements. So it's exciting. And I know the mayor will be excited to have her team tell you about all these great things. In that context, though, with what's happened here is, how can we use this as a catalyst, a Kickstarter to really say, Flint is not alone in terms of having aging infrastructure, in terms of facing challenges. And we talk about this as a national discussion. This is an international issue, and I, again, want to echo Rich's welcome, particularly to people from other countries being here. As we got going in the water crisis itself, one of the groups that really reached out was a group from the Netherlands. And some of those folk are with us today, and I really want to thank them for coming back, because they came forward with ideas about what they were doing in the Netherlands, how we could learn from that and help things here. That's that kind of friendship and partnership that aren't about politics. They're not about political borders. They're about people helping people. Isn't that the greatest thing that we can do when we just help one another? And it's great to see that kind of thought process going on. And I hope you approach this whole conference in that, whether you're a sponsor, exhibitor, participant, or just someone coming by to hear some of the things going on. We can all learn and be better. So some of the things I would share with you at the national level and international level that we've already learned from Flint. One of the things we really did was focus in on the whole issue of childhood lead poisoning. We created an elimination board to actually say, what recommendations can we do coming out of this that we can expand beyond the borders of Flint, that we can do statewide, to understand that childhood lead poisoning has been going on for years. It's been going on for decades. We've seen huge improvements, but it's not good enough. And how can we stop talking about just simply incrementally improving it to what do we fundamentally need to do to eliminate it? And it was interesting. When we went through the process, normally you'd not have that word elimination in the title. And that was one of the most exciting things that got feedback from people that were working in this field, is to actually have the word elimination showed that kind of commitment that had been missing for decades. So that's one of the improvements that we've already seen start the process on. And again, that's a continuing process. It's going to take years to get done, but you had to put the stake in the ground to say, here's the point we're starting from. It's not about reduction, it's about elimination. Other things that we're going to do near term is the state of Michigan is, I hope, to propose model legislation for a new lead and copper rule. We have a federal lead and copper rule. To be open with you, I think in many respects, I've used the term, it's dumb and dangerous. It needs to be updated. And again, that's not a negative reflection on the people who've done it. It's been there too long. And we've had new learnings. Let's update it for those learnings. And also, I want to say, in a positive, very positive way, I respect and thank the people from the EPA Region 5 for being here because they've been great partners through this process. So my comment isn't geared toward the people implementing those rules. We need a better rule. And we need a better model for our country. So I look forward to having a discussion on that, on better sampling methods, on better ways to look at it, on better standards, on dealing with lead service lines, on all these kind of questions that merit attention. One of the areas that amazed me as we went through it, I was dumbfounded, was when we were talking about doing water sampling, that we didn't actually ask for water samples from any of our schools or kind of places where we had frail people or people that might be subjected to bigger risk factors. Isn't it amazing that we'd say we take samples from all these places, but we didn't include any of them in the analysis? I thought it was so common sense it had to be there. It wasn't. That's the kind of dialogue you can have here over the next 2 or 3 days. So as you go through these things, don't be afraid to sort of call things out. Again, in a respectful way, in an RPA way. But to understand that it may have been done with good intentions, but through new learnings, new experiences, let's just not assume if we're doing something, it's the best way to do it. I mean, you don't innovate by being content or complacent. You innovate by asking that question of, what am I missing here? Common sense says something else should be here. Let's just ask that question, and if so, let's do it. So use this conference as a place of innovation. So we're doing things like that. One of the things, though, that Rich mentioned I'm really proud of is we started the 21st Century Infrastructure Commission. And a number of you helped make that happen. Because it's interesting, I spent 2 or 3 years before we had this issue here in Flint talking about our roads in Michigan, infrastructure on our roads. So I'm going to diverge for a minute. But the amazing part is those of you that are Michiganders know we spent 3 years talking about roads, and it was over potholes and chunks of bridges falling off onto the ground. I was carrying around chunks of concrete that were parts of bridges. And it took 3 years to get something done when we all knew we needed to do something, and that was obvious to us in terms of saying we needed more investment, we needed to do something. One of the reasons we've got this water crisis, this water infrastructure problem today, is we don't see it every day that same way. It's buried. It's underground. That doesn't mean it's less serious. It just means it's less obvious. So in many respects, those of you in the water industry know, if I ask you, if you looked underground, how many potholes would you fess up to? There's a lot of potholes under the ground. It's only because we felt them when we were driving around did we finally do something about our roads. Let's not wait for our infrastructure. Let's learn from Flint. We had a sinkhole in Fraser recently. We had a boil water advisory in Detroit. These are all warning signals that are serious, that are not just warning signals, they're hurting people today. But they're telling us across our country we have a problem that we should be doing something about. That's what this is a forum to do, to be a catalyst to further that dialogue. This is not an end point. I view this as an earlier point on that dialogue, and that's what the commission work was doing. So I encourage you to look at the commission report. I encourage you to come back and hand me that commission report and say, Governor, you missed something. This could have been done even better than what the commission said. If you see that, bring it up, because we're still learning. One or two concepts I did want to share with you. One in particular is called integrated asset management. And I know you're going to be doing some more talk about, but this is one of the most obvious, because when you're talking about redoing your roads, water infrastructure, these are expensive investments. So a couple things you need to do is to say, how can we do some of these together instead of just doing them as one-offs? Think about that. Most of us can think of the street in front of our house or where we work and look out at the street in front of our office and say, how many times have you seen it get torn up? Somebody will come tear it up to do road work, and then they'll come tear it up to do water or sewer work, and then they'll come tear it up to do gas and electric work, and then they'll come tear it up to lay fiber, right? How many people have seen that movie? Raise your hand. It's not a pretty movie. You go, my gosh, what's the matter with these people? We should finally start talking about how do we integrate that to say, if we know we need to update our infrastructure, can't we coordinate that? And again, that's a long-term planning cycle. And we've done some pilots already. One of the things we did in Detroit when we did the new M1, the Q line, for Woodward Avenue, is we actually did a lot of that coordination for that project, where we got all those different parties together to say, we're ripping up Woodward Avenue, one of the busiest avenues in all of Detroit. Once we rip it up, we're going to do everything known to man on this section of road to say that when we're done, we don't need to come back again. It was a lot of work, but it worked. One of the challenges we've learned when we were doing the commission report is actually there's about 3,000 different jurisdictions, authorities, companies, or players responsible for infrastructure in some ways. 3,000 in the state of Michigan alone. So when you talk about coordinating, there's a lot of coordination that needs to be done. So we want to start with some pilots, and so we're looking at areas that will pilot that. And I'm pretty confident we can get Flint to sign up. But those of you from other jurisdictions, let us know if you'd like to be considered to be part of that process also. So these are the kind of thought-provoking things that I think are really important. Then, as I've talked about Michigan, we need to take this to the national level. We could spend days and days talking about the new administration we have, but one thing that is appealing in some ways is at least infrastructure is now being identified as a major investment item. So we have an opportunity to help influence the national dialogue, talking about we need to invest billions and billions to trillions of dollars in infrastructure. Let's not waste that opportunity. And let's not wait for them to tell us what they think we should do. We know best at the local and state levels. Let's be speaking up on how we can influence the national dialogue and set the tone for what the nation should be doing on topics like this. So whether you think it's an opportunity or a challenge with what's going on, let's make it an opportunity in terms of influencing that national dialogue. So I appreciate the chance to be with you. Hopefully you can see that Flint has actually while going through a terrible experience in many respects, the mayor's speech was uplifting. I mean, you feel positive when you see that passion, that excitement to make Flint an even stronger, better place. That passion from someone that was from here, that's now back here working hard and doing that, from Rich. That's the spirit of people of Flint. It's the spirit of Michiganders. And when we have a problem, we don't roll up in a ball, we don't walk away from problems. You just got to stand up and say, we've got a problem. What are we going to do about it? How are we going to make it better? How are we going to fix it? How are we going to learn from it? How are we going to extend it to make sure it doesn't happen other places? And then how do you do things better and stronger? Continuous improvement. So that's the spirit of this conference. We've got 2 or 3 great days that you can learn from better, smarter people than me. I encourage you to do that. And I encourage you to come out of here with action items. I'll share one last food for thought thing for you. Is I don't like nice meetings. Really don't. And what do I mean by that? Is I don't like nice meetings because that means there wasn't enough action coming out of it. There wasn't enough tangible outcomes. And I define a nice meeting as, think about this, is when you leave a meeting and somebody comes up to you, that next person that sees you, and they walk up to you and say, how was that meeting? And if you just go, yeah, it was a nice meeting, it wasn't worth it. What I want you to come out of here with is when someone comes up to you after you get done with this and they say, hey, how was that conference on water infrastructure? Oh my gosh, we got to go do this, 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 and this. And I met some cool people from here and here. And I'm going to get in touch with them because they got some great ideas or they asked me for my help. That's not a nice meeting. That's a worthwhile meeting. So thank you for the opportunity to be with you today. Have a great conference. And I really appreciate you being here because you're going to make all of Michigan a stronger, better place. Thank you so much.